Good evening. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Gary.
Here.
Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. Fire. Recruits from the Fargo and West Fargo Fire Department started a 10-week fire academy today. 4 recruits from Fargo and 1 recruit from West Fargo will be participating in the 5th Firefighter Academy jointly hosted by the 2 departments. During the course of the academy, recruits will complete classroom work, drills, ride-alongs, and live burn scenarios. In addition, recruits will experience hands-on training in a controlled environment and learning techniques to prepare them for real-life scenarios. Congratulations, Chief. You keep adding them all the time. I'm getting nervous about the budget now. But health. Fargo Class Public Health is encouraging owners of massage therapy establishments in Fargo to contact them to begin licensing procedures. The license requirement is associated with an ordinance passed in December 2021. It was National Women's Health Week recently, a time when women are encouraged to make their health a priority. Fargo Cass Public Health promotes healthy lifestyles, and its family planning program offers free and low-cost confidential services to help women with their healthcare needs. Services include annual physicals, HIV services, immunizations, birth control, STD testing and treatment, pregnancy tests, and health education to prevent disease. No one is ever turned away due to inability to pay for services. Please visit the Fargo Cass Public Health website for more information. Library, a spring plant swap to be May 23rd at the Carlson Library. Participants can bring in seed packets or plants to trade and share, which could be divided to perennials and start garden plants or propagated slips. The library's weekly Tech Help service for residents who need a little assistance using their technological devices continues Wednesdays from 3 to 6 at the downtown main library. Police. The 3rd annual Police Fargo Academy launched today with 27 new recruits who were chosen from a group of more of 100 applicants after extensive application, background check, and interview process. The individuals attending the 2022 Fargo Police Academy will receive more than 450 hours of North Dakota Peace Officer Standards and training board-approved training. Upon successful completion of the academy, the students are eligible to hire as licensed peace officers by the Fargo Police Department and throughout the state of North Dakota. Today I proclaim Dean Prashani Day because today is his last day as the president of NDSU after serving 12 years. I included in the proclamation of his many achievements and successes and wished him well as he begins his next chapter in life as a professor at NDSU. We will now see a video showing the Fargo Cass public health employees who will talk about why they have chosen to devote their careers to public health and serving our residents.
I had no intention of working public health. And as I've been here, I think it's 7 years now, I just genuinely really like what I do. Anyone who's a nurse probably likes to care for people.
I've always worked in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, so I decided I wanted to kind of still help others, but maybe in a different kind of environment.
The people we serve here are some of the most interesting, fascinating people I've ever met, and you give people respect. They just share everything with you. When they're happy, they share it with you. When they're having a hard time, you get to know that, and you realize how valuable and how extra special they are because of the challenges that they faced.
It's rewarding when you've been working with someone on an issue and we finally find a solution that's going to work for them. You feel like you've made a difference in their life and impacted them positively.
I like being a part of something bigger. I like working here because I get to help people from all different walks of life and being a resource for those in the community.
I really have stayed now for 19 years in public health because I like that you get to get people in more teachable moments and this ongoing relationship that we get to have where we can come alongside young families and help moms and parents and hopefully make healthier kids.
I explained to our guests that we're like a staircase, we're there, but you have to take the first step up that stair. And sometimes it might take time to get up that second stair, but they'll accomplish it. And I know that with my support, I might help them achieve that second step.
Being here reminds me that public health is the community. Public health is everyone, and the more that we do to push each other to get the health care and get the support and anything that we need, being in this community with our guests reminds me that we all have a responsibility to each other in the community to be there and do what we can to support each other.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
I so move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the May 2nd, 2022 regular meeting?
So move.
So, second.
Second. Any changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 25?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Strand.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Preston.
Aye.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Resident comments. Brandon Krieger is up tonight. We only have one speaker tonight. Must be spring.
Good evening. 2 weeks ago, the light was pointed at Roar's construction. I will not rehash the facts the articles have shown, but the specific situation has shown a lot of failed components in communication. As far as the public is aware, no communication was exchanged between Roar's and the city prior to the completion date in December, nor is the public aware of any communication from the city to Roar's prior to the completion deadline last December as well. Let's not get this entangled with the idea that incentives are a bad tool. Incentives are not evil. Incentives are tools to assist the city in reaching the goals for residents, grow its economy, and provide security and trust in the city government. What failed in this situation was the city not delivering the safety to the city and its finances, and everyone up there will need to shoulder that responsibility, except Commissioner Garrick. What I thought was happening was a restructuring of how the city goes about incentives and making sure everything was in tip-top shape with those who received any. There's plenty of responsibility to be passed around for this failed policy and construction. I urge the city to continue to create a suitable system for incentive follow-ups so that it can be implemented immediately to protect resident dollars and to allow Fargo to apply incentives to other areas of Fargo. Incentives are important to keep Fargo moving forward. It brings in capital, as Commissioner Pepcorn has shown us in the past, while also allowing Fargo to stay This will also allow Fargo to stay above the feeling of financial strain, such as the ones the rest of the United States is being predicted to have or is currently feeling. Thank you.
And now we're so far ahead, I can't do public hearings till 5:15. So we would go to item 28, recommendation to create a task force to address street racing. Commissioner Preston.
I'm not there this evening, but case of bronchitis, and I don't want to give it to anyone else. I think the memo that's in the agenda pretty much explains what I am requesting. There were probably around 50 people at the town hall meeting regarding street racing, and there were a lot of good ideas actually that got brought up, but a lot of concern. So what I'm suggesting, and I've had a conversation or an email at least exchange with Michael Redlinger, is that a task force of 7 to 11 people be appointed with the intent to become educated on the topic and then research various solutions used by other cities and even in other countries. And then identify how the community, including both businesses and residents, can assist in addressing the problem and then developing strategies. Hopefully not meeting any more than 4 to 6 times, hopefully be done within a 6-month period. So it's not that these recommendations would necessarily be applicable to this summer, unfortunately. Although I think certainly Chief Zolski has indicated a commitment to move forward on some things if possible. I know the traffic unit is on the table again to come back. But there's probably a number of state laws that also need to be addressed. So the recommended motion there is to direct the assistant city administrator to identify a process for appointing membership, which would be 7 to 11, to the street racing task force with the above stated purpose and process identified. And I would so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Discussion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Pipcorn.
So I guess what I'd like to suggest is that we continue this until after the election, because I think obviously we have the possibility of for sure having one new member and possibly 3. And I just think it's something that the new commission, the newly formed commission, would be better to address. I guess that's my main thing. The second thing is, it seems now we've got so many committees, we've almost got more people advising the police than we have police officers. We've got the city commission, we've got this newly formed police advisory commission, and so I guess that's my comments. Thank you.
Mr. Gregg.
Chief Zawalski, if you could come up, please. I just wanted to learn, what changes have we made in response to the public outcry since we started getting notified of that?
Well, we did have a pretty in-depth discussion or presentation at the town hall meeting in terms of what we're doing both short-term and long-term. One of the things that we're doing immediately is creating some directed patrol missions for our pseudo traffic safety unit to start trying to enforce some of the speed violations. If you saw that, as you know, one of the issues is that we have a lot of folks, 1 out of 55 traffic stops that does not stop for our officers. Some of those are the racers and the people that are involved in this type of activity, but there's also others involved in driving issues who don't stop for the police, and we wouldn't typically chase them for a traffic violation. So there's some legislative proposals that we're working on to increase the penalty for fleeing and add owner responsibility piece to that, so that the owner of the registered vehicle is responsible for some of that activity. We've been working with our partners across the region to also add some aerial surveillance and some other partner collaborations in terms of enforcement. We started last year already with getting our motorcycles and our operators recertified so that they could be out on the bikes, running radar and doing things of that nature. So I think we're doing everything possible in the short term. Long term, we need to actually have that bona fide traffic safety unit back with positions. So I think there's a lot going on right now that we may want to have further discussion around that, but I'm open to doing whatever the commission would like.
Sure, and in the memo that was given to us, it basically laid out the areas of which this is happening. So we have an idea of where to put the extra patrols if we have the extra manning and the ability to do that, correct?
Yeah, we've been doing it already and actually having pretty good success, but for the people that don't stop.
Sure, so in the short term, we've made some changes. You have some long-term goals already to implement. If we did this in a 6-month time frame, it would be winter, and then the point would be moot. There's not going to be people racing in the roads in December when this would be all wrapped up. So I don't think that the urgency is there for that. I think we should allow some of these new tactics that the police are using to take place, see if it does make a difference. This is not a new problem. This has been going on for many years. Also, Chief, if someone's speeding and they're going, say, triple the speed limit, so they're going 90 and a 30, would you just give them a speeding ticket?
That would be reckless driving. If they would stop, that would be reckless driving, and that's what a lot of these situations are.
Right. So if you're speeding in the street, it's not just a speeding fine. It's you've now broken the law, and it's more than just a fine would be. So we have the enforcement capabilities in place. I think there's no problem with talking to the state about this in the future, and that's not a problem. We can obviously do that. But task force after task force after task force, and we see very little positive outcome of these things. When we have things we can do immediately, we have plans to do things with the enforcement in the future. I think that the city commission needs to just make a decision on these type of things. And again, I'm just not a big fan of just having one more task force, so it gives the appearance that we're all doing something when we're really doing nothing. We're just kicking the can down the road. So I'm not in favor of this. I think there's things that we can be doing, and we start implementing these things immediately without forming a task force and basically wasting everybody's time.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Preston.
Go ahead, Commissioner Strand, and then I'll hop in.
Oh, I'm sorry. John didn't have his hand up. Commissioner Preston would be up. Thanks.
Okay. Well, if any of you had the opportunity to see the video from the meeting, you'll have heard the concern coming from the community, and also the community recognizing that they are part of the solution, that it's not all just law enforcement. It truly is. I mean, some of these street racers are probably living at home, for one thing. But certainly it's an issue that will require something more than just law enforcement. The group was very interested, I think, in some follow-up, and that's what this is a response to. The task force would be very short-term, and it's an opportunity for the community to really feel like their solutions, that they're being listened to, and the solutions are broad enough to meet the challenge.
Any other comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
No.
Gary,
No.
Mahoney,
No. Item public health hearing. We go on to now public input. Item 27. Maplewood Estates Second Edition, 5800 and 5820, 38th Street South. Approval recommended by Planning Commission on 10/5/21. Zoning change from agriculture to multi-dwelling residential. Planning unit development overlay. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and a plat of the Maplewood Estates Second Edition. Donald Crest to explain.
Thank you, Commissioners. Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Crest from the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting this item, which includes an ordinance prepared by the City Attorney's Office. As the Mayor has stated, this is the Maplewood Estates Second Edition. It is located on this long, narrow piece here that is along 38th Street South. This is now, by the way, complete. This is under construction during this photograph. This has now been completed. For location, 52nd Avenue is off the top of the photo, and the Walmart is there. And this is the area that is going to be developed as the Sanford Sports Complex. This project includes a zone change, a subdivision, and a planned unit development master plan. The subject property looks like this here this morning. This is 38th Street here, looking at it from the west. And then here is looking at it from the frontage road, which is the I-29 frontage road. Looking at it from that end, this is the existing house, which the applicant can explain to you what's happening with that. The zoning here is currently agricultural. This property was included in the large annexation, which brought in the Sanford, the property that's going to be the Sanford Sports Complex, among others, that was in January of 2021. The subdivision plat would create one lot out of the two lots that are there, one long, narrow lot with access only from 38th Street. The frontage road will no longer be available for access. The planned unit development, which modifies some aspects of the MR3 zoning, which is the proposed zoning for multi-dwelling residential. The applicant has laid out this general plan, which has two 100-unit multi-dwelling buildings in it. The modifications to the MR3 zone are stated in the chart that's included in your packet. Some modifications there. The applicant, John Eunice of Eagle Ridge Development, is with us this afternoon and may wish to address the Commission. The recommended motion from the Planning Commission is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation, Commissioners. Thank you.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this rezoning? Anyone present who wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the
Mr.
motion.
Chairman, move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item 29, you have my recommendations for appointments to the Economic Development and Incentives Committees. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item 30, update on the Roars Newman Center project. Mike Redinger to get us a kickoff here.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Good evening. I'll provide a brief update just following your last City Commission meeting on May 2nd. Just wanted to let the Commission know we did have a meeting with the Roars Company on Monday, May 9, and then following that on Tuesday, May 10, a meeting with the Roosevelt Neighborhood Association and their representatives. We did receive a proposal on a Friday, May 13 from Attorney John Bolger, who is representing Roars Development in this matter. And we're going to be talking about that at a future executive session with the City Commission. I'll turn it over to Ian. He will also provide some comments. Nancy Morris will return and participate in that executive session in the future. And so Jim Gilmore also had a picture and a couple of slides that he was going to show as well.
Commissioner Pepcorn asked me to provide some additional slides on this project. This is the approved planned unit development that was approved. What I probably want to note here is that up here was to be a green area, and these are the 7 townhomes in question. There was an option in the zoning to provide an additional 4 townhomes. Wherever you look at the ownership of the property, Roars continues to own the townhome site as NC Investments. The Diocese of Fargo owns the site where the other 4 are. This dotted line, this shows basically where the property line is between the View Apartments owned by Roars to the south and the faith-based housing and church complex to the north. This was a slide that I had at the last meeting. The picture was taken about 3 weeks ago. This is where the kind of green space would be. This is a picture taken this morning, so there has been some cleanup on the site. Just a couple other before and after photos where the townhomes are. There's still a lot of construction material. That's all I had for an update, unless you have any questions.
Ian, you had something as well?
I do not have much to add to that. We did receive the proposal on May 13th. We sent that out to all of the city commissioners. It's the city attorney's position that we should meet an executive session to discuss our negotiations. I understand Mr. Roars is not in the state for the time being, and there's no rush to get back to him. That we could wait a couple of weeks to go into executive session.
And the commissioners have received the offer, so just that's still confidential because we are going into executive session. There may be litigation, so we'd ask the commissioners to continue to hold that to their own files as well. Anything else, Mike?
No, that's all we had tonight, Commissioners. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd just like to ask that we have the executive session next meeting, as I don't have many left. I want to at least see the outcome of this one. Thanks.
Item 31, recommendation for downtown cab and rideshare pickup areas. Lieutenant Bill Elfelt explain. And I guess the chief as well, double here.
No, it's a good introduction. Yeah, this is a project we've been working on since last year, so Lieutenant Elfelt and his team put a lot of efforts into this, so he's going to lay it out for you. I'll be happy to take questions at the end.
Sounds good. Thank you, commissioners, for the ability to come in here tonight. The end of 2021, the chief, along with myself, formed a meeting with our downtown community partnership and other partners, business partners in the city, to talk about some safety issues that were coming up at bar close on Broadway, and specific large crowds forming outside of the bars that more popular bars, Broadway, NP Avenue, all the way up Broadway. Some of the traffic congestion that caused people walking into the streets, fights, other things that might have been happening. Went to that group of individuals, our business partners, to talk about possible solutions, and wanted to bring everybody in and see what they thought, along with some of our suggestions. What we came up with was designating drop-off areas, or cab stands, if you will, for not only rideshare, Uber, Lyft, but also some of our local cab companies that we have here in the city of Fargo. I'll go into it a little bit as where they're going to be here in this presentation, but the main purpose of doing this would be to pull people away from Broadway, away from some of those busy, narrower streets, and also the bars where we were seeing some of these fights and other issues occurring, dispersing them off of Broadway and allowing for a little bit easier pickup and more efficient pickup of individuals to get them home using rideshare or cabs. So what we'll be talking about here are pickup areas, if it's going to be a pickup or drop off. I'm going to show you some heat maps of where Lyft and Uber and other rideshare companies have most activity, or they have within the last year. The proposed zones, then we'll be open for questions. Again, talked about this a little bit, but we've collaborated with Uber and Lyft, talked to them about possibilities of geofencing. The data given was for 2021. We've met with our city attorney's office about the feasibility of this and a possible change to our current parking ordinances to allow this to occur, and also preparation for this meeting. We've also talked to city engineer's office to see what kind of issues we have with signage, markings of street, and what that might look like. So this is from Uber for the better half of 2021 as to what their activity looked like for both pickup and drop-offs. This didn't surprise us greatly, but it's good to see the data that the pickup and drop-offs basically start happening at 12 a.m. Friday morning or late Thursday night into Friday morning, and they go up as we move into the weekend, and then drop considerably early Sunday morning within the city of Fargo. And the area that we gave them was our Broadway corridor, our downtown area to look at. These were some heat maps that they provided, not only for drop-offs, but pickups. And both the maps show activity in all the same places. A lot of activity in the 600 block of MP Avenue, near some of the more popular bars, Sports Bar, Old Broadway, and 3rd Avenue and Broadway, and then all the way up in the 500 block or close to 6th Avenue, where we have another cluster of our more popular bars in the city of Fargo. This is a map from Lyft, a heat map for pickups and drop-offs in 2021. It shows the same data, basically. Large amount of activity at 600 MP Avenue, some at 2nd and Broadway, up in the 300 block of Broadway, and then up 500 block to 6th Avenue on Broadway. After meeting with the business owners, meeting with city attorney and engineering, also collaborating with some of the individuals at the police department, we picked these areas based on that data that we found from Uber and Lyft, which should be good places to pick people up at. You'll notice I'm not saying drop off, because what we're proposing is that we would not regulate drop-offs, but we were regulating pickups. We want people to leave the area to be picked up and go home safely. So 600 block of MP Avenue, where we had that large cluster on both heat maps, would be one place that we'd want to put that. If you'll notice, I try to distribute both sides of Broadway so people wouldn't have to cross Broadway to get to these pickup areas. And so 5th Street and 1st Avenue North, which would cover that, would be east side of Broadway. People could walk to there. 2nd Avenue and Roberts, right by the post office. 5th Street, 3rd Avenue North, and then all the way up at 6th Avenue North and Broadway for another pickup area. Again, mirroring, if I'll go back to the heat maps, mirroring what we see, you don't really see a whole lot of activity in the 400 block of Broadway. There's very little activity. It starts in the north part of Broadway at 6th Avenue, and then also the majority of the activity is down where we have those other areas. The other thing I wanted to consider, and that others considered when we talked about this, was residential areas in the city, and especially in specific in that Broadway area, where these congregation areas to be picked up are going to be, or very close to. We didn't want them to be close to residential areas so that there wouldn't be a lot of noise and might disturb people at 2 or 3 in the morning. And so we strategically planned that when we picked these areas for pickup. So proposed changes would be a new ordinance. This would be in effect from 10 p.m. Thursday night until Sunday morning. And so Thursday night 10 to 3, Friday night 10 to 3, Saturday night 10 to 3 on Sunday morning. The signs would read as such if we were to move forward with this proposed change. It would only affect pickups, as I spoke before. You'd still have the ability to be dropped off at any location in the downtown area. We would make it so there'd be identified areas for cabs and rideshare. Cabs would be allowed to park for a period of time. Rideshare would only be allowed to be in those areas for a short period of time just to do the pickup and move. And then, of course, we were going to be introducing this commission tonight with an anticipated mid-June implementation if allowed to move on. Questions?
Commissioners? Commissioner Gregg?
Yeah, I've got a few questions. So the perceived benefit, and correct me if I'm not understanding it correctly, is you're getting the large groups away from the bars near bar close to avoid things like fighting and other things that happen when people have been drinking outside of a bar.
Correct. That along with, when cabs or Uber pick up, they stop in front of the bar. It creates congestion, creates traffic to back up on Broadway, MP Avenue, and some of the other areas within downtown.
Have you considered what the potential drawbacks are?
The potential drawbacks?
Negative effects of doing such things?
The negative effects would be that people would be pulled away from the downtown area. Some businesses might still be opened, and it could draw them away from that. But also, they would have the opportunity to still go there and be picked up later. So we've considered some of the drawbacks. I don't see many in this, and that it pulls people away from Broadway.
I've considered a few. One, I don't know that we have the ability to regulate these types of businesses, ride shares in the state of North Dakota. So I want our lawyers to look at that more deeply and see if that's the case. We had this come up, a similar item come up in, I believe it was 2016, when the state told us that we were not allowed to regulate ride shares. The second one is, what if we're removing these groups away from the bars and then they're going somewhere else? And there's going to be large groups of people in different areas, not outside the bar, but maybe outside of Arlette's house or in front of Dave Pepcorn's business. And that's where they're doing the fighting instead, and that's where they're maybe puking or whatever else, things that happen late at night. So have we considered or talked to people in the area where you want to move these rideshare pickups?
We've held 2 different meetings where people downtown have been allowed to come and speak. We've made that, we advertised that through the Downtown Community Partnership, and those that wanted to come came and talked about that. We've talked to the bid on this, and one thing you had mentioned about puking and maybe creating rubbish and things like that, it would actually concentrate areas where people might be standing where they'd be able to, throughout the evening, pick up those things. If you take a walk through downtown at 3, 4 in the morning, you might see that all over the sidewalk or all over the place or in doorways. So it would concentrate it to areas where we hope it would, to just a few areas in the downtown. To answer your question on state law pertaining to regulation of rideshare, we've consulted with our city attorney multiple times on this, and they'd be better fitted to answer more in depth. But what we're looking at is regulating parking as opposed to the rideshare.
Okay.
So don't you have Bill here to explain that?
Will, yeah.
Okay, I can.
You do have an attorney that do that. You can ask your next question, but you can come up, Bill, and be ready to answer it, please.
What I'm really getting at here is that we're not fixing a problem, we're moving it to a different area and affecting different people. So the areas where they actually were served the alcohol no longer have to deal with all the downsides of those people then leaving their establishment and then getting into a cab outside of their establishment. The ride shares have done more in this community and in many other communities to curb things like DUIs and people driving drunk and those type of things than any government program has ever done. They're fantastic, and they've been fantastic for our community. My fear is that we'll harm them by making them do these type of things, and then there'll be enforcements on this too, because if they're not doing it, then why have the law in the first place? So it could cause confusion, it could cause enforcement problems, and it could affect their business. So I just want us to really consider the downsides. I understand the upsides. I get it. And I think that the upsides are interesting to explore. But when we talk about these type of changes, we also definitely have to consider the downsides. And I would love to hear from the attorney once you've answered that.
Sure, I totally agree. And we met with our bar. In fact, it was a bar owner that came up with this option. So it's not that we're attempting to move a problem. We're attempting to help people who want to get out of a very congested area at bar close, get them out. Because what's happening right now is Lyft and Uber and they can't get close enough to the bar to pick people up who want to leave, not the people that are going to congregate anyway. And they're getting stuck in this congestion. They can't drive, they can't back up, people can't find their Ubers. And so what this is really doing is taking the people that are leaving and not involved in other activity to a safe lighted area for them to find their ride shares and get out after bar close. And the Lyft and Uber have already said they would voluntarily do this to work with us because they also thought it was a good idea. So I hear your concerns on that, and we will monitor that. But just to add to the thought, I think we would very much like to see the food carts move to these areas as well to, again, take people who want to buy food away from this congested area at bar close, let them get their rides, and the logistics of it puts them in places where we are less in conflict with people who are trying to sleep late at night. And we're kind of running into that confluence of bar closed, I'm trying to sleep at 2 a.m. type of problems. So just, that's kind of how we approached it.
Bill, can you answer the legal question first before we go to the next question, please?
William Wisher, Assistant City Attorney and Assistant Prosecutor as well. So that's correct, Commissioner Garrett. There is a Century Code section that does talk about the regulation of the TCNs, which would include Lyft and Uber. The language that we're concerned about is a political subdivision may not impose a tax on or require a license for a TNC company or a TNC driver, or subject the TNC to a rate, entry, operational, or other requirements. Now, at first blush, that might be concerning on what the city can do, but we have an article in the city ordinance, Article 8, that has lots of different parking regulations. So I think Nancy's research conclusion was, as long as we focus on the parking and not the singling out of the TNC, we should be okay. But you're correct, the more specific we get on Uber and Lyft, the more maybe concerning it gets. So her initial research was that this is okay as long as we keep it more general.
Thanks, Will.
And the last thing I'll say is, thank you for that. The last thing I'll say is we need to be careful when we say things like the DCP agree with this and that Uber and Lyft agree with this. The DCP isn't all-inclusive. Not everyone is part of that. And the people who live there probably aren't a part of that. And when you talk to Uber, you're not talking to the individual drivers, you're talking to whatever corporate entity you talk to, right? So that's good that they agree. But I would be very interested to see what the drivers think about that. Because this is going to cause congestion in different areas. When I look at that heat map, I see it spread out all over the place in downtown. My fear is that if we put it in 5 different places, it's going to be very congested in those 5 different places. So I understand what you're trying to do. I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's a creative solution to the problem as long as we understand the downfalls that might happen.
Yeah, and the other piece, Commissioner, is that at any time, the commission can change the locations or end the program. So I think we'll monitor it and go from there, and we'll just request that the commission pass the recommended motion so we can continue our work on that.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Strand had a question.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. With the geofencing technology, say somebody's at Dempsey's, they can't order their Uber from Dempsey's, they have to go to the pickup area to order their Uber or Lyft?
What they would do is when they requested their Uber or Lyft, they would say, we have a driver available, they will pick you up in one of those areas.
In one of those areas, okay. How about ADA people who are accessibility issues, people who can't move and get to, and we're requiring somebody with disabilities or something to go somewhere? Are we accommodating those folks?
You know, I'm not sure if Uber can accommodate those folks. I don't believe they can. And I believe that we would be talking about either a city entity that might have to do that between specific periods of time, or other types of entities that might pick up people with disabilities. And so I don't believe that Uber and Lyft or even Doyle Cab can accommodate those types of things. But it's something that I would double check on. I know Uber and Lyft can. I'd have to double check with Doyle Cab.
I'm concerned about anybody with any limitation, personal or not, that they can't get around or mobilize or get somewhere. It's not just somebody in a wheelchair, and my sense is that they probably can accommodate a lot of folks. Now, I don't want to create a problem for other people. This is a distance for people to haul to get to a pickup area, and I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I know sometimes when I've traveled to other cities, it's not easy when you're told to go to a certain area and you don't know which side of the street. I mean, it's just not always easy. I don't know if this is a solution or not, I guess, frankly. And I've lived downtown, I've seen the downtown. I don't know. I'm not convinced or not. Have we run this by our police oversight committee, or have we run it by the businesses downtown more specifically? I know you've talked to a few.
We've run this plan. We've given one opportunity since we put this plan together to run by businesses that were willing to come and be interested in that. And so we gave that opportunity, if allowed to move forward. Again, understand this is a proposed thing. This wouldn't be the final thing that we'd be coming with. If given the opportunity, we're going to run it by a group of businesses again before we do a final plan. But you bring up an interesting point with ADA. It's something that we
Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, the big thing to me is this has to be seasonal, because in the wintertime, this is a whole different ballgame. And like John said, the accessibility, when we have a lot of snow, if somebody is in a wheelchair, you're not traveling multiple blocks, or if it's icy or things like that. So when it's like this outside, a couple of blocks, that's good. When it's 30 below, a couple of blocks, people aren't doing it. And so I think that is an issue. And maybe you've looked at that, the seasonal issues, but I do think you have to consider that. Thank you.
One thing.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, one more thing, Mr. Commissioner Preston. Mike, or Bill's talk. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I did take that into consideration. I can look at history from working downtown for a number of years. People are dispersing somewhat anyway. People are standing outside anyway when they're calling their cab at 2 a.m. because they're not allowed to stand inside. And so if we can, in my mind, if we can create an area where cabs are going to congregate, Uber is going to come and pick up, they won't stand outside as long. And so just from history and from what I've seen over my years of doing this, that is what would happen.
Commissioner Preston.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I'm sorry, I'm sounding like I'm echoing.
We can hear you
Sorry.
pretty good. Just talk slow.
Okay. It just sounds like this has been well researched and the right people have been brought to the table. And it sounds like it would be very much an evolving kind of solution. So I say let them try it.
Any other discussion? Good report. Thank you. And it is a trial. We try it, but I've been in big cities. Uber's one area, taxi cabs are another area. It's sometimes inconvenient. You have to walk a distance. But John, I think your issue on disability, we should look into that and see if there's anything special you could do for that as well. Roll call vote, please.
Was there a motion?
Is there a motion?
Well, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Commissioner Strand.
My second is with caution, but I will look forward to hearing from more people downtown and more affected customers and get their input and more. I'll look forward to our studies of other communities and what we learn from it. So I'm not on board completely, but I won't shut this down in my mind right now to explore it further.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
No.
Gary,
No.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 32, bid advertisement for project FM 22B. This was not made in time for the consent agenda, but however, it's submitted to our deadline. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. Commissioner Strand, do you have any announcements to make or birthdays at this time?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay, move to adjourn?
I so moved.
Second.
Is there a second? You guys deliberately made this meeting go longer than that. Meeting's adjourned.